In this time of year, faith traditions from all over the Northern Hemisphere celebrate stories about connection and deliverance. From Ostara in the pagan traditions, celebration of spring's arrival, to the remembrance of liberation and Passover. Even this year, Ramadan is being celebrated right in this time. It started earlier this week and will go on throughout April 21st. Christians celebrate as well. This week as they're preparing Holy Week for Easter. We pause as the earth turns, keeps on turning right around us. No matter what, the snows of the winter recede. We offer thanks. You know what? We made it through. We survived. We are saved. These stories remind us that to be faithful in December, to be faithful that the light will return, to be faithful to all that is to believe even when you cannot see that which you believe will be coming into being. Right? As Unitarian Universalists, I believe that we are called to this free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We gather to explore these amazing tales, to let them help us to learn a little bit more about our lives and who and how we might live in the world differently. We pause to examine the truths that we told, right? Like a candle. Candle or jicama? Hopefully jicama. In this faith so often bounded to humanity, I wonder, can we yet believe in something large enough to hold all that is and act beyond what seems possible? For today, let's take a look at Easter. This is an epic tale. No one would ever say anything else, right? It probably is familiar to many of you. This is a story about a journey home, a fallen hero, a trial, death on a cross, an empty tomb, an itinerant carpenter named Jesus. Holy cow, if somebody in this room doesn't find something in there that's like, oh, that's kind of fun. Look, a hippie, right? Whatever it is, moving through life. Hero, this is our journeys that we follow and listen to time and time again. I'm struck, though, by the impact that this particular story has had on our world. The cross, it's a towering symbol. In the South, where Pam served in Chattanooga and we lived for 2 years, they've built crosses literally 5 stories high out of barn siding. They are powerful and crude. Can anyone stand in front of that symbol of horror and torturous death who is not kneed in the stomach? This was a crime of jealousy, a crime of dominance, a killing to silence powerful words. Who is not changed or touched by that horror? It is power, and it is palpable. It speaks of a human condition that we each know in individuals and in the collective. Truth, my friends, truth is dangerous. The story of Jesus, though, is filled with this sense of inspiration and heroism, treachery. Jesus embodied the world where everyone deserves justice, compassion, and belonging. But on Palm Sunday, when Jesus rides into the town, he's hailed. He's hailed with such fervor that apparently even the rocks have found their voice and sing for him and proclaim with greatness and joy, Hosanna! Hosanna in the highest, right? Hey, Hosanna, 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 hey, Hosanna, hey, Hosanna, Hosanna. By the end of the week, he would die as a criminal. Jesus was this person, I imagine, who had the power of charisma. He taught from a place of really deep, authentic understanding, rather than from memorized words, or probably even from a script like I'm doing this morning, right? Today, we might call Jesus the real deal. He lived compassion by evoking practical messages. If you're hungry on the Sabbath and you didn't get a chance to pick food, pick it now and eat it. That's what's smart to do, even if it's against what somebody else says are the hard rules. He spoke about equity. He spoke as if each person should be respected, should be embraced. He pushed against the common wisdom of subservience to stay safe, right? It's in his teachings that we hear this beautiful, if some centurion comes and asks you to carry their tack for them for a mile, carry it too. What does that give somebody? If somebody comes and says, hey, you, I'm really tired, I'm a centurion, I got it over you, so I'm going to ask you to carry my tack for a mile because it is heavy. That's okay, I'm going to carry it too. Carrying it too gives me control. You're going to make an obligation out of me? I'm going to take that obligation on myself, and then I am the one who is maintaining and defining the destiny that I have in front of me. He was able to address the realities of his followers with so much authenticity that people heard him, they listened, and they were moved. He went one further step, and he actually lived with the oppressed, the unwanted of his time. Not just the downtrodden, but really the real outcasts. He traveled with foreigners. He touched people who were suffering from leprosy, right? Oozy, smelly gunk. Come here. You belong here. He dined with, and probably today this might even be, reviled tax collectors. He healed Roman officials' children, right? This guy was like out of his mind. He had this radical message. Everyone deserves to be here. It was a message of hope, a message of love, real. And a week from today, Christians around the world will celebrate Palm Sunday as that place of amazing joy. Our person is here, coming into Jerusalem, coming to celebrate with us. Here he is. Let us sing loudly. Zana, zana, hey, zana, hey, zana, zana. I can only imagine what it felt like. They knew, if they were thinking about it, he's going to clash with authority. This is not going to go well. Their previous times, these are people who have had this happen, right? Moses, not so good, right? How come Jeremiah standing at the edge of the city? You're not doing it right. Not invited to a whole lot of dinners, right? This rabbi, Jesus, was both special and utterly perilous. Most of us know the story, right? As the week goes on, there's this very public argument before a celebration of Passover. A disciple leads authorities into the garden, gives a kiss to identify Jesus, and Jesus waited. Maybe he knew. Maybe he knew too how perilous this thing was. Maybe he knew too that we and humanity were not necessarily going to show up as it looks. Societies then and now are built upon oppression. Some segments by others, others on top. And usually the existing system doesn't topple. We live in this complicated world. It reminds us that all humanity is complicated. You are complicated. My wife and I are listening to a book right now that reminded us at the very beginning of it. It was such a treat. You are annoying. Yes, you're right, I am, and so are you. At the foot of the cross, though, at the foot of this cross, there stood all of humanity in our large S, right? Have the powerful Sanhedrin, right? These people who are the leaders of the Jews. I'm not up all the way up to the Romans, but by gosh, I'm at the top of something, right? Who are saying vile things about Jesus because they want to destroy him. They want to destroy his voice that's telling truth. Don't talk like that. You're giving people ideas. Oh, don't give people ideas. They might just eat a heck of a candle. There's the protest of Peter. Please don't ask me this thing. Stop. Don't ask me to do something that you want me to do that's going to be super, super hard and might cause me to die. No. You have the crowd, right? The crowd gathering around. Oh, they're probably somewhat relieved, right? Okay, it's happened. We knew it was going to happen, and now here it is, it's happened. Good, and they're probably excusing themselves. I don't know, have you ever done that? Oh, he really went too far. He toppled, did you hear? He toppled the tables. He touched that woman when I heard that story. It was amazing how horrible. Oh, and Jesus, oh, holy cow, he was eating with Romans. Oh, how quickly that which is in our heart can shift over. Beloved too, well, maybe not so great. Maybe he needed a little comeuppance. And there was Jesus also at the cross, asking for help from his mother. The cry of a son who knows the grief that is about to befall somebody, who knows how hard it's going to be for somebody to live in this world knowing that their son was crucified. Crucifixion was so horrible that people didn't talk about it. You just shunned those people for some amount of time because it was a scourge. So much for the beauty of belonging. All of human sins, many Christians believe, are taken away by this act, but they are the same sins that brought the act on to begin with. Not in a Mel Gibson moment, but in a very real reckoning with the knowledge that we are imperfect. No one's going to get this moment right. No one gets any moment 100%. We cannot see the full expanse of the history we're living within, so we ask always for forgiveness, for mercy, for someone to see us in the wholeness that we may not yet be able to see or live within ourselves. The story that so many Christians tell about that death of Jesus, while unpleasant, is that actually it was a gift to humanity by God to take away the guilt of all of that sin that lays and lives within our lives. For many Christians, Jesus died for our sins, then we're all good, right? Hey, Jesus died for me, so thank you very much. I'm going to go and live my bold life, and at the end, I get to say I'm done, and I am done. But this is not how I would ask us to engage this story. And I would guess that it's not how most Christian pastors would ask their people to engage this story either. First, we can acknowledge sin is real. While not a popular topic in our community, we know this, right? Sin is universal and particular. Each of us falls short of the mark we aim for on any given day. Each of us is human, and being human, we are imperfect, and we are afraid, and we are alone, and sometimes we don't act so well. I think you probably got that by now. As you used, we live into our values amid this challenge of struggles with our own sin. And we live trying to find those ways to act differently, even in the presence of it, right? We stay awake to the realities of our world. which is not easy all the time, especially in times when people are saying that woke is not a good thing. But we try to stay awake. What is going on around me? Why is she eating a candle? We stay awake to the systems that need to be examined and changed. The message of the oppressed having rights and needing a voice is just as radical today as it was 2,000 years ago, right? When someone comes up to you and says, I want to talk to you about defund the police, ripples go through? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. Ripples go through? The systems that need to be changed are still there, and it still is a dangerous thing to take a look at them. Sin is always there, and sin that we embody finds ways of being in these systems. Some use the cross as the excuse to excuse themselves from the hard work of changing. But I would say it is the symbol that asks us to move forward like liberation theologians. So there was this guy in Brazil, his name was Father Gutierrez, who wrote groundbreaking work called Liberation Theology. He actually wrote it at the same time as a Black theologian here in the US. But what Gutierrez says is in liberation theology, the way to rationally talk of God is located within a broader and more challenging course of action, the following of Jesus. It's not enough to just say, he died, so I'm okay. It is, would you be willing to take that track? Would you go out and have dinner with the tax collector? Would you go out and touch somebody that seems like they are untouchable? Are you showing up at the library boards that are taking books out of our libraries? Or are you showing up with trans people to say, I'm here, I'm with you? Even if you don't understand it, it's not the understanding that is the peace. It is the action that is the peace. Those people are on the margins, and it is our call, if we're following any of the stories that we claim, to do what the stories do. We may not consider ourselves Christians in here, I don't know. I know that I'm a follower of Jesus. Christ is a little harder for me, but that has a lot to do with Pauline writings and is a different sermon. We may not believe in the stories in their entirety. We may even question if 2,000 years ago, those stories have any validity for us today. But I ask you today to play this game of freedom and responsibility, to set aside the examples that may have been even personally harmful in your lives about Christianity, and to take a step back and look at this story and wonder with me for a moment, why has this story lasted so long? Why has it been co-opted by so many? What does it still have to teach me today? Because I'll tell you, if I read my Bible well, what Jesus would ask of me is to embrace these liberation movements and to lean into my fear and my questions as if I was ready to be changed. I doubt that he'd be doing any judging for people falling short of the mark. He might point it out, but pointing out is different than judging. And I'm not sure that he would not just live into the humanity that he sees today and try to stop the marginalization of those people who are speaking their truth to power. Here's a funny thing, though, for today. Jesus' story takes a final turn, right? We go through the cross, we go through all of the arguments, and then Jesus is brought down off the cross and he's taken to a tomb. The Jews who have inhabited the base of the cross go and celebrate Passover, right? And the next morning, Mary Magdalene, the story goes that Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb. She goes to pray to prepare Jesus's body for internment. In those times, a body would be interred twice. The first time was to get all the meat off the bones, and the second time they would inter the bones. But this first interment needed a preparation, right? The body needed to be washed and all of that. And as she approaches the tomb, what does she find? The stone is rolled away. Why this? Why this in this story? Wasn't the cross enough? Why offer this? I know that for Christians in this space of resurrection is when Jesus becomes God and, is taken off into heaven to walk among us for 50 days, but then ultimately taken off into heaven. But for me, this space where Mary comes around a corner and finds a stone rolled away, and her response, that is where I find the most hopeful thing in this entire journey. When faced with the loss of her liberator and her friend, she doesn't act out of fear. She doesn't take a step back and rail and goes, who opened that? Those lousy zealots, they took the body. Those Romans, they opened it up so that the animals could come in and eat him and he would be desecrated for the rest of his life. She didn't take that on, right? Instead, what she does is she goes in and she's like, oh, something really strange is happening here. And she goes to her community and she says, help. I need help figuring this out. I need help understanding what this turn was because something impossible has happened. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine walking, thinking you knew what you were going to find, and being open enough to seeing something impossible rather than those very real excuses that you might come up with in your head? The encounter with the empty tombs and the sightings of Jesus that will later be described as the resurrection, it all begins with Mary. It begins with Mary allowing a world to show up for her in ways that she didn't expect. This whole story remains because Mary was open to the possibilities of other answers still to be found. She makes room for what might be, even as she sought to honor what was. What I take from this is yes, just that word, yes. Yes, see our world, it is broken as all heck. Yes, work for justice, work for equity. Yes, speak out in compassion. Yes, build community. And in this sin-weary world, when you have to act as if the possibility is still there, that the impossible is still possible. How many of us do that? I'm sorry, I can't talk to my neighbor. They had that sign up during the election. I'm sorry, I don't want to go to blah, 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 because it's scary. I don't know how those people act. I will admit to it if no one else. Being open to the message of the empty tomb means allowing hope that hardest, most entrenched things can actually change. That we do not ever know the full arc of the story of this world. New things still happen. If we look for them. But it starts with believing. It starts with having faith in December that somehow in spring, those trees are going to bud again. In this time of increasing authoritarianism, of increasing threats to compassion, we must still act as if we believe that wonderful and amazing and joy-filled and love-filled things are possible. That maybe if we sat down with that person with that sign, that it wouldn't be mere political theater. Maybe we can live our lives as if connection and respect and love and forgiveness, and yes, folks, even resurrection is possible. The darkness of the tomb seems impenetrably bleak and hopeless. Really, there is no way forward? Can you sit in that darkness and hear and refuse to give in to its fear? When Jesus walked into Jerusalem, what did his followers expect? When he waited in the garden and he breathed his last on the cross, and his followers waited and waited and waited, was there a sign of hope that it might still be possible? Not so much. Can we claim that hope, even as we encounter humanity, that we can save ourselves by living in a place where the answer to fear is actually gathering in community, gathering in places like this, to seek and be open and be reminded of what it is that is still possible? Thank you, my friends.
Visit us at uusg.org.